When Baden-Powell introduced the idea of the patrol method as the preferred way to deliver his scouting program to boys, it was revolutionary, and many people criticized him for thinking it would be effective and insisting that the boys would fail and disappoint him. But BP knew better. His time in the military, where he had trained and led soldiers, and the lessons he learned about being a wartime scout from people like Russell Burnham, led him to write Aids to Scouting, which talks about patrols as groups of men working together to complete their mission. It also addresses these patrols training each member using activities and practice to achieve their goals. When BP learned Aids to Scouting was being scooped up by children and youth serving groups to help teach them self-reliance and discipline through the mastery of outdoor skills, he knew he wanted to demilitarize these lessons for the development of peacetime scouts. In his 1907 document, Boy Scouts, Summary of Scheme, BP writes, "Patrols of 6 scouts are formed under a senior boy as patrol leader. 4 or more patrols up to 10 form a troop under an officer called a scoutmaster. The scoutmaster would select 6 or 8 special boys to act as patrol leaders of his troop. These he would put through a course of instruction for about 3 weeks or a month with the help of the handbook. If Saturdays and Sundays only are available, it will take a little longer. After this, each patrol leader would form and instruct his patrol of 6 scouts on the same lines under supervision of the scoutmaster to pass a standard test for the privilege of wearing the badge of a scout. Similarly, where there are not enough boys to form a troop, a man or boy can form a patrol of 6 and instruct them, after which further development could be carried out by games and competitions. Each scoutmaster should have an adjutant, i.e. an officer under him to serve as a second in command and general assistant, ready to take his place at any time. Similarly, in each patrol there should be a corporal, trained to help the patrol leader and to act for him when necessary. Responsibility is thus given to a number of boys. At Brownsea Island, BP tested his concepts and they worked. By 1908, the handbook BP referenced in his scheme was printed, and as they say, the rest is history. We'll look back on the patrol method and the role of the patrol leader in this edition of Artifact of the Week. While the scheme for scouting painted with broad strokes what scouting would look like, Scouting for Boys came in and provided the detailed brush strokes of color and texture. Baden-Powell didn't start scouting as a standalone organization, but rather as a way for the scouting program to be delivered through existing groups and gatherings. BP writes, "The system is applicable to existing organizations such as schools, boys brigade, cadet corps, etc., or can supply a simple organization of its own where these do not exist. But in all cases, I would strongly commend the patrol system. That is, small permanent groups, each under responsible charge of a leading boy, as a great step to success." In the foreword for instructors, BP provides additional information for his training methods. By the term instructor, I mean any man or lad who takes up the training of either a patrol, i.e. 6 to 8 boys, or a troop, i.e. several patrols joined together. By means of this book, I hope that anyone, even without previous knowledge of scouting, may be able to teach it to boys in town just as well as in the country. I recommend the instructor to begin with a patrol of 8 boys if possible, and when these have qualified as first-class scouts, to select the best 5 or 6 to raise each a patrol of his own and instruct it under the instructor's supervision. And the die was cast for the patrol method. Older, more experienced scouts leading and instructing younger, less experienced scouts. As the scouts advance, new patrols and ultimately additional troops can be formed. The patrol method was also a growth strategy, whether BP intended it to be or not. In Scouting for Boys, BP uses what he calls campfire yarns as the method of delivery. The instructions in these yarns comes by the way of stories, with activities and competitions sprinkled throughout to reinforce the messages and skills. In Yarn 2, BP outlines how to join the Boy Scouts. To become a Boy Scout, you join a patrol belonging to your cadet corps or boys brigade or club. If you're not a member of one of these, or if it does not as yet possess a patrol of scouts, you can raise a patrol yourself by getting 5 other boys to join. They should, if possible, be all about the same age. One boy is then chosen as patrol leader to command the patrol, and he selects another boy to be the corporal or second in command. Several patrols together can form a troop under an officer called a scoutmaster. In Yarn 3, he again adjusts his scouting being a program for other organizations, or in the absence of those entities, a standalone group. It is not intended that Boy Scouts should necessarily form a new corps separate from all the others, but the boys who belong to any kind of existing organizations, such as schools, football clubs, boys or church lads, brigades, factories, district messengers, telegraph service, cadet corps, etc., can also take up scouting in addition to their other work or play, especially on Saturdays and Sundays. But where there are any boys who do not belong to any kind of organization, and there is a very large number of such boys about the United Kingdom, they can form themselves into patrols and become Boy Scouts. For this purpose, officers are necessary. Officers. The head officer of all the Boy Scouts in the world is called the Chief Scout. A Scoutmaster is an officer who is in charge of a troop. A troop consists of not less than 3 patrols. Scouts address the Scoutmaster as Sir. A patrol leader is a scout appointed to command a patrol. A patrol consists of 6 scouts. Any lad or young man who learns scouting from this book can make himself a patrol leader and collect and train 5 or 7 boys to be scouts. A corporal is a scout selected by the patrol leader to be his assistant and to take command of the patrol when he himself is away. In the 13th edition, published in 1928, Yarn 4 ends with the patrol system and a word to the patrol leaders. The main object of the patrol system is to give real responsibility to as many boys as possible, with a view to developing their character. If the Scoutmaster gives his patrol leader real power, expects a great deal from him, and leaves him a free hand in carrying out his work, he will have done more for that boy's character expansion than any amount of school training could ever do. A word to patrol leaders. I want you patrol leaders to go on and train your patrols entirely yourselves, because it is possible for you to get a hold of each boy in your patrol and make a good fellow of him. It is no use having 1 or 2 brilliant boys and the rest no good at all. You should try to make them all fairly good. The most important step to this is your own example, because what you do yourselves, your scouts will do also. Show them that you can obey orders, whether they are given by word of mouth or merely rules that are printed or written, and that you can carry them out whether your Scoutmaster is present or not. Show them that you can get badges for proficiency in different handicrafts, and your boys will, with very little persuasion, follow your lead. But remember that you must give them the lead and not the push. In 1946, the Boy Scouts of America, on behalf of the Boy Scout International Bureau, published the World Brotherhood edition of Scouting for Boys. Campfire Yarn number 4 is titled Scout Patrols, Patrol System, Patrol Leader, Patrol Signs, Games. Each scout troop consists of 2 or more patrols of 6 to 8 boys. The main object of the patrol system is to give real responsibility to as many boys as possible. It leads each boy to see that he has some individual responsibility for the good of his patrol. It leads each patrol to see that it has a definite responsibility for the good of the troop. Through the patrol system, the scouts learn that they have considerable say in what their troop does. Each patrol chooses a boy as leader. He is called a patrol leader. The Scoutmaster expects a great deal from the patrol leader and leaves him a free hand in carrying out the work in the patrol. The patrol leader selects another boy to be second in command. This boy is called second or assistant patrol leader. The patrol leader is responsible for the efficiency and smartness of his patrol. The scouts in his patrol obey his orders not from fear of punishment, as is often the case in military discipline, but because they are a team playing together and backing up their leader for the honor and success of the patrol. And the patrol leader, in training and leading his patrol, is gaining practice and experience for being a fellow who can take responsibility. Also, besides training his patrol, the patrol leader has to lead it. That is, he must be at least as good as any of his scouts at the different jobs they have to do. He must never ask a fellow to do anything he would not do himself, and he must never be down on anyone, but must get the enthusiasm and willing work of everyone by cheerfully encouraging their efforts. In every line of life, young men are wanted who can be trusted to take responsibility and leadership. So the patrol leader, who has made a success with his patrol, has every chance of making a success in his life when he goes out into the world. Most of your work in the patrol consists of playing scouting games and practices by which you gain experience as a scout. So far, we have only looked at the patrol method and the patrol leader through the lens of BP and Scouting for Boys. In the United States, a young man named William Hillcourt was employed by the Boy Scouts of America in 1926 to help develop program and training elements for the organization. In 1929, he authored the first handbook for patrol leaders for the BSA. In the message penned by James E. West to open the 1933 printing of the handbook, West says, "From the very start of the Boy Scouts of America, we have strongly advocated the patrol system as essential to real scouting." In 1923, in a foreword to a pamphlet on the patrol method, I stated that this method does not relieve the scoutmaster of responsibility for maintaining standards of scouting, but that it does very definitely open up a way whereby the scoutmaster may share his leadership responsibility with the patrol leaders. I am happy to state that never before in the history of the Boy Scouts of America has the patrol method been used more universally or with better success than at the present time. It is not an experiment, but a practical method, the only practical method, of conducting a troop that has been tried and found successful. Hillcourt believed the handbook for patrol leaders had to be written by someone that had been both a patrol leader and a scoutmaster. Hillcourt had been both. He opened the handbook with a letter to the patrol leaders that would be reading it. Once upon a time, there was a boy who wasn't much of a boy. He wasn't physically strong. He didn't care very much for games such as other boys played. Indeed, he didn't care very much for other boys. He lived mostly in a dream world of his own. Then one clear January day a good many years ago, he became a scout because his father gave him the handbook for boys as a Christmas present. Little by little, he became absorbed in the life of the Scouts, in the things that Scouts do, in the ideals of the Scout movement. He was lucky enough to have a very wise scoutmaster who understood the minds and moods and abilities of his boys and tried to give each one an opportunity to grow. And so, one day, the scout found himself appointed a patrol leader. And right then and there, a new life started for him. His responsibilities developed his character. His life with his patrol in the open strengthened his body. The realness of the boys in his group made him into a real boy himself. For a long time, he carried on his job. Slowly he learned its many phases. Slowly he made himself a leader somewhere near worthy of those wide-awake, very much alive boys of his. That patrol group with its splendid spirit of loyalty, unity, and togetherness. And as he worked, he came to wish that he might someday give to other patrol leaders the benefits of some of his experiences, to help them along on their path to successful leadership. This book, which you boys now have in your hands, is that other boy's dream come true. As you read the handbook, you will see it is exactly what Hillcourt envisioned. It is a former patrol leader and scoutmaster providing new patrol leaders with all the lessons he had learned and the tools they needed to be successful. Following the handbook for boys, West tasked Hillcourt with writing a monthly column for Boys Life magazine called Hiking with Green Bar Bill. The articles were written from the perspective of one patrol leader writing to another patrol leader about his patrol, advancement, and activities. Even though Hillcourt was in his 30s, he was able to transform from the patrol leader of his friends in Denmark to the patrol leader to America through the Patrol Leader's Handbook and his Boys Life columns. Hiking with Green Bar Bill ran in Boys Life until the 1980s. Another part of the patrol method introduced in Scouting for Boys and carried forward to troops today is the Patrol Leaders Council. In Scouting for Boys, the Patrol Leaders Council, or PLC, was known as the Court of Honor. A court of honor is formed by the scoutmaster and two patrol leaders, or in the case of a single patrol, by the patrol leader and the corporal. It decides rewards, punishments, and other questions. In later editions of Scouting for Boys, it reads, a court of honor is formed for the scoutmaster and the patrol leaders, or in the case of a small troop, of the patrol leaders and seconds. In many courts, the scoutmaster attends the meetings but does not vote. The court of honor decides rewards, punishments, programs of work, camps, and other questions affecting troop management. The members of the Court of Honor are pledged to secrecy. Only those decisions which affect the whole troop, example appointments, completions, etc., would be made public. Patrol leaders have in many cases formed themselves into a Court of Honor and carried on the troop in the absence of the Scoutmaster. In Scouting America, the PLC is formed by the Senior Patrol Leader who presides over the meetings, the Assistant Senior Patrol Leader, all patrol leaders, and all the troop guides. The troop scribe also attends to take notes and keep minutes. The Scoutmaster and other adult leaders attend PLC meetings to serve as mentors, answer questions, and ensure that the rules of Scouting America are being followed. The PLC is responsible for the planning, preparation, and presentation of the troop scouting program. It's up to them to see that the promise of scouting is delivered every month. They also participate in the annual planning conference, where the troop's scouting year is laid out on the calendar. At PLC meetings, the details of this plan will be discussed and finalized. In the collection of the National Scouting Museum, we have many different editions and printings of Scouting for Boys and the Handbook for Patrol Leaders, many of which were used to produce this episode. We also have bound copies of Boys Life magazine where visitors can read Greenbar Bill's columns in person. You can also access back issues of Boys Life magazine through Google Books if you'd like to read Hillcourt's columns yourself. I'll include a link in the description. We also have the Patrol Leaders position badges on display. The earliest cloth position badges appeared in 1910 for Patrol Leader and Assistant Patrol Leader only. Senior Patrol Leader appeared in 1914. Most other basic troop positions were available by the late 1920s. Like all other Scout badges, the first ones were simply the embroidered emblem on a piece of square or rectangular cloth. Until the 1970s, no wording appeared on these badges. The position identification was simply the number of bars, the emblem, or the color of the embroidered border. We also have on display a selection of combination rank position badges that were used between 1914 and 1925. Until 1925, the only ranks in the BSA were tenderfoot, second class, and first class. For Scouts that attained these ranks and had served as patrol leader, scribe, or bugler, there were combination badges with both the rank and position or positions they could wear. Here you can see the difference between the standard first class rank badge, the first class patrol leader badge, the first class scribe, and the first class patrol leader scribe badge. We're still missing a few of these badges in the collection. If you're interested in helping us complete this part of the collection, please let me know. As I just mentioned a few minutes ago, the senior patrol leader position wasn't formally introduced until 1914. For the first few years, the most experienced patrol leader would be identified as the senior patrol leader and assist the scoutmaster in leading the entire troop, with his assistant patrol leader leading the patrol during these times. Well, that's all the time we have for this week. Join us next time as we continue to learn more about the history of Scouting America through the collection of the National Scouting Museum and Artifact of the Week.